Hi, Chris. Nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So just a little introduction. My name is Chris Gannon. I do a lot of interactive design and animation and illustration. My talk today was going to be about the almighty rabbit hole, which is the kind of little journeys that I go on when I'm learning new things, and the things I learn in the process, and and the results of that learning. But today, I'm going to live code an animation instead, because I think that would be pretty useful. I'm going to show you my process from start to finish, and hopefully that will be useful. If you have a CodePen account and you want to code along with me, you can go to this URL. And you can fork that pen, and we can build the animation together if that's what you want to do. I'll show this URL again at the end of this very short bit of presentation. So you may not know what I do, but this is the kind of thing that I do. I kind of do a lot of just pure animation. This is an exercise, and sort of like I love eggs. I love space. I like doing a lot of interactive design. I like sort of taking your normal sort of interface elements and making sort of different sort of fun versions of them. This is a happy and sad toggle. And other things like this pure animation. I love a bit of goo. Most of the stuff that I do, in fact, pretty much all of the stuff I do is using SVG, and I animate everything with GreenSock. So GreenSock and SVG, and I usually create most of my assets in Illustrator. So I'm going to be going to Illustrator and do a little bit of stuff in there. Not very much, because I've already done a lot, because this is not an Illustrator talk. It's about animation. And this is the other sort of thing that I do, like make egg toggles that are completely useless, but fun nevertheless. I like making people laugh if I can. This is I love sliders as well, bubble slider. This one's called balloon slider. A bit of interactive fire. You can click it and it just fires up. Anyway, so this is the kind of stuff that I make. Sometimes for clients, but a lot of it's just for my own amusement, really, and for my own portfolio, really. This is a Wimbledon toggle, tennis toggle. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a bit of fun. And a slider with various sort of like a GUI slider. And I do a lot of loaders as well. So that gives you a bit of sort of, just shows you a bit of sort of what I'm doing. So if you want to follow along, you can. It's tiny.cc/fwdays. And I'm just going to get on and basically start coding. What I'm going to code, because the national flower of Ukraine is the sunflower, I'm going to animate a sunflower. And there's a lot you can do with a little. And I like to keep things nice and simple. And you can add a lot of complexity to very simple things. So I'm just going to get started, basically. So let's just pop out of, can I pop out of full screen here? Oh yeah, there we go. And I'm going to go into Illustrator. Okay, so normally I would start with like pen and paper, and I would draw the assets that I'm, just sketch some stuff out, get some ideas, and then I would start putting stuff into Illustrator. Because I've only got a very short amount of time, I have already drawn a sunflower, but I want to talk about the kind of structure, because the structure of the assets inside Illustrator is very important when you're going to animate stuff with JavaScript later on. And so I just want to kind of talk about that sort of briefly here. So first of all, I've got the whole thing is grouped together in a group that's called whole flower. I like to make sure everything is in a group because it gives you a lot of flexibility later on. I mean, you can add these group tags later on inside your HTML page, but it's nice to keep things organized. And then when we go into whole flower, we can have a look at this is the flower head, and inside the flower head there's several groups. One of them is this group, which is, by the way, can you see all this? Shout yes if you can and no if you can't. I can't hear you at all. I'm going to assume that you can hear me and that you can see everything. Can you?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just checking. Cool. So this is a group of this is the seeds in the middle, and it's just a lot of circles in a group called seed group. And then you've got the face behind. This is just a circle. That's called face. And then you've got two lots of groups. This is the sort of front petals. This is called petal group. And again, it's just a group of paths. And then you've got these ones at the back here. And this is called petal group back. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, really. And again, it's just a group of all these. And you'll notice that I've ordered them so that they're all next to each other, because you'll end up with quite a nice sort of a nice staggering animation if they're all next to each other, one after another in their layers. Okay, so that is pretty much it in terms of this. Oh, and also there's the stalk, and there are two groups here of leaves. There's a left leaf, a right leaf here, and in this one there's a left leaf and a right leaf. So I would probably just get on and start animating that now. So I'm just going to get rid of this and just show you how I output, because I'm not sure how many people can I ask the compare to ask the audience how many people are using SVG animation in their work? Anyone? Yeah? I assume that's why that's kind of why you're here, because you're interested. Okay, so there are several ways to output SVG from Illustrator, and this is my preferred choice. It is the asset export panel. I'm just going to turn the sound down a little bit. And what I tend to do is a mistake lots of people make when they're outputting SVG stuff is they take the thing they want to animate and they just basically output it on its own like that. Now, the problem with this is you will end up with just this and no context. What I mean by that is it will end up you will end up with an SVG which is 278 by 552. And that's kind of not what we really want. What we want to do is we want to have a nice 800 by 600 stage with this in the middle of it. So what I do is I select both of them. This is just a rectangle. I select the graphics that I want to animate, and I pick them up, and holding down Option or Alt, I drop them onto the asset export, and that adds them all together in one export asset, basically. And I'm going to call this sunflower. And then making sure that the format setting, making sure that SVG is set to presentation attributes and layer names, save settings, and making sure the format is SVG, and then just export it. And then I'm going to select that folder to output it to. And then I'm going to open it up inside a text editor. Can you all see the text in the text editor? Hooray! Okay. So the first thing I tend to do is I tend to turn what Illustrator does is if you use Illustrator with SVG is that it gives IDs to everything, and it's very annoying. It would be nice if we could use class names. So I tend to go through and do a find and replace on ID equals. and replace it with class equals. Just to you've got to be careful when you're using gradients and other things that reference with ID, but in this instance I'm not. So I'm just going to replace everything with a class. So now everything's a class, which is just sort of nicer. You may have noticed that also I had named two layers leaf R, even though they're in different groups. Now what Illustrator does here is it will add a -2, and then it will give the data name of the name that you want. So we're going to just delete that data name, we're going to delete that data name, and we're just going to make sure these are exactly the same. I mean, it just makes it easier for animation later on. So we've got leaf group 2, leaf group 1, leaf group 2, the petal groups and all that sort of stuff. And while I'm in here, I tend to sort of tidy up a little bit. So if I'm using a group of things that all share the same properties, what I tend to do is, if they're in a group, I will copy their common properties. So I'll copy that onto the clipboard, and then select all of the common properties and then delete them. And what I can then do is add that set of properties to the group that they're all in, and these properties will be applied to every single circle that's inside, and it just saves on a ton of code basically. And the same for the petals here. I know that they all share this fill, so I'm going to copy that and then select all of these fill colors and delete them, and then just apply that color to the group that they're all in. And that will save a bit of code. And again, same with these, the ones at the back. Copy that, select them all, delete, and then apply that to the group that they're in. So I think we're pretty much ready to copy this into into CodePen. I use CodePen because I can set up templates, and I've set up a little template which I'll show you in a second. So what I'm going to grab is, I don't need all this other gubbins here because I've got this in my template. What I want is just my whole flower. And you'll notice, because I copied it along with a rectangle that was 800 by 600, it has used 800 by 600 as the view box, which is really useful. And that's why I copy it along with the rectangle. Okay, so I'm actually going to delete that. And I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm going to delete these two. And so this one is the beginning of whole flower. So I'm going to select all of this stuff, copy that, and I'm going to go into a pen that I've set up. This is just a little bit of basic markup, CSS markup. There's nothing special. It just marks it up. And then I've got an empty SVG here that I've already set up. It's just a tag, and I'm going to paste that into the tag. And it appears. Hooray! I don't live code very often, so it's always nice when things actually work. Okay, so I think we're pretty much ready to start animating things. Now, you'll notice that next to my mouse cursor, there's a little. Can you see that there's a little black box with green numbers on it? I'll tell you what that is in a minute. It's a little tool that I made that is available to everyone, and it helps me to animate. In fact, I'll just turn that off for a minute. So that's gone. And so I think we're just sort of ready to start animating things. Now, my plan is to have the stalk grow up, and then for the face to sort of go from 0 scale to large, and then all the petals to appear, and also for the leaves to appear. So I'm going to start doing that right now. So I've set up a green sock timeline, because everything we're going to do is going to be in green sock, and I can literally just start animating. Oh, by the way, that's if I just open up the JavaScript, I'm using Tween Max, and Timeline Max is included in Tween Max. And I'm also using when I open up one of my templates, they include all of the libraries that I might ever want to use, so I can just start coding straight away. If I happen to use them, then I'll keep them, and by the end of the project, if I haven't used them, then I just delete them. So it's just a nice way of having everything there. It's like a boilerplate, basically, for animation. So just a quick note, this Scrub GSAP timeline, this is a little library that I've developed over time, and it helps me to animate, and it means that I can scrub along. I'll show you in a minute, and it means I can scrub through my animation at a very granular level and see how it's going. I don't have to keep running it, and just seeing how it's going. So it means that if I'm concentrating on something that's 10 seconds into an animation, I don't have to wait 10 seconds every time. I can just scrub straight through it. But I'll show you that now. Right. So I'm going to start animating the stalk. And what I tend to do is, if I'm animating something like this, I'll animate everything from hidden. So this, I'll start off with the end result, and then all my animations will be from a specific point. So I'm going to do sunflower timeline dot from, and I'm going to talk to the stalk, which is in here somewhere. If I do find stalk, and that's this line here. Yeah, that's this line here. And the nice thing about this is it's a native SVG element, which means that we can animate these values here, and we can do that by using their attributes. So I'm going to say we're animating the stalk for 2 seconds. And we're going to animate it from, we're going to say its Y position, its Y2 position, which is this top position. It sort of goes up to about here. We're going to animate its top position from its bottom position, so it looks like it's growing. Okay, so we're going to say, so in GreenSock, we can use the attribute object, and we can say the Y2 tag, the Y2 attribute, we're going to say it's going from the Y1 value. Okay, and I'm just gonna, oh, there you go, you saw it go. And I'm going to turn on my scrubbing tool, and what this allows me to do is I can move my mouse along, and it will show me where I am in the animation. So I can see, can you see that it's going up to, by my cursor, it's going 1.6, 1.7, and so it's showing me that it's a 2-second animation. So this is really, really handy. By the way, you can download this yourself. This is on my GitHub. I'll share that at the end or something. Okay, so that's the stalk done for now anyway. So the next thing I want to do is maybe animate these leaves. And so when we add an animation, we're going to do these from as well. So first of all, we're going to do, I think leaf group 1 is the first set of leaves. So we're going to go from leaf group 1, and we're going to talk to the first leaf. I think, is it leaf L, is it? Oh no, well the first one first one it comes across is the right one, isn't it? So we're going to do that, and we're going to do that for 2 seconds, and we're going to animate it from a scale of 0. Now, when you add an animate, what you can do is with GreenSock is you can chain animations together, so you don't have to keep doing sunflower timeline.from. You can add this to the end of this animation. So at the moment, you'll see that the stalk animates, and when it's finished, then the leaf comes in. But you'll notice that the leaf comes in sort of, its transform origin is at the top left, which is not what we want. And I'm just going to this is a kind of an important point. I did a little diagram of the leaf. So this is the transform origin. It defaults to 0%, 0%, which is the top left, which is why you see it going like this. Where we want to animate it from is sort of its bottom left, really, which is 0% on the X and 100% on the Y. So we're going to set that inside our code. So we're going to say it's transform origin is 0% on the X and 100% on the Y. And you'll notice immediately it changes to animate from a far more natural position. And I think as well, we're going to add a little rotation in so that it actually animates from a specific rotation. So we're going to animate it from like minus, I don't know, 34 degrees or something like that. So you'll notice it animates from an anti-clockwise position. Can you see it? Sort of. It's if I exaggerate that, you'll see what I mean. It's starting to come that from there. And if we just make that a little bit less, it's a little detail that I think will look really nice. Right, we can do the same for. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that. And I'm going to change this to leaf L, which is this one here. And so we're going to have the right leaf and then the left leaf. Now, obviously the left leaf, its transform origin is not the same. Its transform origin is over on the right-hand side here. It's at 100%, 100%. So we need to change this to 100%. And I think we could probably actually change the rotation so it too is coming from the stalk. Yeah, so I think that's going to. Oh, by the way, with my tool, I can just take this off, and it will. It's quite difficult to do actually when I'm live broadcasting. But don't worry about the timing for now. We're going to change the timing later. We're just going to get all the animations in place, and then I'm going to copy both of these again. And I'm going to just paste that down here. And I'm going to change this to 2. And so 2 comes. So now we've got a nice series of animations. Now what would be nice is if when the stalk was coming up, when the stalk got to about here, the first set of leaves started coming in. So what we can do is, rather than adding these animations at the end, like directly after the stalk, what we can do is we can add in an offset. So we can say, we can go minus equals 1 second. So we can say this, go back a second from the end. So essentially, if this is a 2-second animation, which it is, this is essentially going to start at 1 second. And I've done a little time bar for this. So imagine when you add, so this is the first animation, imagine, and then you add a second animation, and it's added directly to the end. And then a third animation is added directly to the end. If you do, for example, this one, minus equals 1 second, it will just go back 1 second from where it was added, i.e. at the end. And again, if this one was minus equals 2, it would actually start at the beginning of the animation. So that's kind of how that part works. I'm going to have to rush through this because I'm already halfway through. So I'm going to say this is about like maybe 1.3. I want this to, and maybe actually go back even further with that, maybe 1.5, because I want, as the stalk is going past, maybe going back even further. Maybe go back even further. Right. Okay, and again with this left leaf, we're going to go back. We'll go back the same for the time being. We can change these later on. And again with these ones, both of these, I want to bring them further back in the timeline. So they're not. So it's not all just one animation after the other. It looks quite mechanical. Okay, so that's that'll do for now. We can come back and change these. So let's move on. So the next thing I'm going to animate is the face, this brown circle here. So we can say we're going to animate that from, that's called the face, I seem to recall. And we'll do that over 2 seconds. and we can either use scale, or we can, because it's a native circle. Let's have a look for face. So face is actually a native circle, and a native circle has the attribute r, which is radius. So we can actually animate the radius from 0. So imagine if I put that at 0, it just disappears because you can't see it. So it's a radius of 0. So what we can do is we can say attribute, and then it's in braces, and we're going to say its radius is from 0. And again, that's now going to be, oh, hang on, that needs to be a class. And that's now going to happen at the end of the animation because it's been added to the end. And so what I want this to do is I want this to happen when the stalk is finished. So I'm going to bring this back a little bit as well. Minus equals. I'm just. I mean, a lot of with animation, you just do it by how it feels, how it looks, how it. You know. So I'm going to go back a little bit more, so that as soon as the stalk finishes animating, it starts to come in. I need to go back a bit more than that, don't I? A little bit more, actually. Well, let's go back 2 seconds. Let's go back a little bit further, actually. Well, that'll do for now. Maybe a bit more. Okay. So we've got the animation playing. So let's just see how it is for now. It's not bad, but we're going to add some nice eases in. We're going to add a lot more life into it. I'm going to just put this scrub timeline tool back in. And so the next thing we're going to do, I think, is we will animate let's have a look for the petals. I think we'll animate the petal group back. So that's these back ones here. And what we can do with a group of multiple elements is we can use what's called stagger to and stagger from. So we're going to go .stagger from, and we can pass in the group, but we also have to say, okay, well, we're talking to the group, but we also have to say, what do we want to access in the group? We want to access all the paths. And so I'm going to just put that in as well. So now I'm talking to all the paths in petal group back, and we're going to do that over 2 seconds as well. I'm going to pass in, put the object, and we're going to tell it their scale to go from 0. Oops, excuse me. There. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to animate them all from their own individual 0. So they're all going to animate from their own 0 point, which is going to look terrible. So maybe transform origin isn't the right thing to use here. So what we can use is we can use SVG origin. Now this is an absolute origin that they will all animate around. Now, if you think about it, we probably want them all to animate around the origin of this circle. So if we go and find that circle, where's that face? Its CX, its center X and its center Y are 453.6. So we can say 453.6, and its center Y is 182.67. So now, SVG origin, is that? You'll see them all coming up behind, but they're all coming up at the same time, which is not what we want. So what we can do with the stagger animation is, instead of this particular property here is actually the stagger amount, and it's the delay between each animation. So this animation is made up of however many petals there are. So if there are 30 petals, there are 30 animations, and currently they're all happening at the same time. But what we want to do is add a tiny delay between each one, maybe like 0.007 or something like that, 7 seconds, and that will give them that will give them a slight stagger. It's actually quite difficult to see with the with this one going on. Maybe we should. Let me just change this to the petal. Maybe we can see that a bit better. So you can see that it's sort of coming. There's a little bit of a stagger. We could make that a bit. We could change that offset a bit more so you can see, because now you can see that they're coming one after another in a much nicer kind of nicer sort of staggered animation. And so I think we'll leave it at that for the time being, and we can copy this over. We can do the same for the petal group back, and that will be added just after this one's finished. It will happen directly after it. But what I found when I was sort of rehearsing this, I kind of found that it was rather nice that them happening sort of at the same time, because they animate in opposite directions. So what we can do is we can, rather like we were doing here, we can send it back back earlier in the timeline. Here we can do the same. We can say go back minus equals, I don't know, about 3 seconds maybe. And so we're sending these all the petals in the petal group back to happen almost at the same time as the other ones happen, which is kind of a nice little. It's a nice. Let's see how that works. Okay, so that's not bad. I mean, it's very slow, and the easing and everything isn't quite right. But we'll, again, as I said, we'll go back up. We'll refine it over, once we've got the basic animations in place. So I think the last thing to animate are these seeds, and I think they are in a group, and it's just a group of circles. So again, we can do the same sort of thing for this. I'm going to copy this one over, and we're going to call that seed group. So we're going to stagger from everything in seed group. Now, there are no paths in seed group. They're all circles. So we need to change that to circle. And rather than changing the scale, we can change the attribute. The radius attribute, rather like we did with the face. And we don't need this. So, and again, all these are going to be from 0. So we're going to change all these little dots that were there. So they all come in. You see that? See how they're all coming in there? So that's pretty much the animation done in its sort of bare bones. Now let me just save that. Now what I tend to do is I'd sort of go back and say, right, okay, I need to start retiming things. For example, I really want these leaves here to start much earlier. I want them to start when the stalk is here. I also want to change their ease. At the moment, they're using the default tween max ease, which is like an ease out. I want to add an elastic ease, which is like a sort of a slightly wobbly ease, and so that we can go and do that now. So the stalk, I think it's going to be nice if the stalk eases in and then eases out. So here we can add in for the stalk, we can say, by the way, if you don't know what an ease is the way something animates in and out, or in and out, or in or out. So sometimes things gradually come in and then stop, or they gradually come in and then very slowly stop, and that's an ease. And so we can say something like power 2, which is a type of ease, and we can say ease in, out, which means it's going to ease in slowly and then out. And you can immediately see, because the timing has changed on the way it eases in, it's sort of fixed where the leaves come in. Because now the stalk is actually starting more slowly. So we don't really need to change that so much. But what we do want to change is the actual ease. So these look a bit more wobbly and a bit funky, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an elastic ease to all of these petal animations. and I'm going to do it because I'm going to run out of time otherwise. I'm going to go ease, and I'm going to do elastic.ease out. Now this is quite an aggressive ease. It's sort of a big fat wobbly ease, a big fat wobbly elastic thing, which is not necessarily desirable. So what we can do is, and I'm not sure many people know about this particular functionality. You can add a configuration to elastic ease, and you can say the overshoot is less, so it doesn't bounce so much. So we can say like maybe 0.4 on the overshoot. So that's how much it sort of bounces. And the frequency with which it bounces is, let's say, I don't know, 0.5. Lower numbers mean it's going to go, it's going to really sort of go nuts. So which doesn't look necessarily that natural. So we probably make it a bit. So there's a little bit of ever so slight, sort of a slight bounce, almost like it's blowing in the breeze. And these are the kinds of things that I like to concentrate on when I'm doing animation, because they really do make, a massive difference to the animation. Easing is often so overlooked in animation, and really it's the thing that makes or breaks an animation. You can have the best sequenced and timed animation in the world, but if you haven't got the easing right, if you haven't got the way things come in and out right, you've lost it really. And I think so that's that. We'll leave that there for now. And I'm going to do the same for the face. I'm going to add an elastic ease because I love an elastic ease. This looks. Have I made a mistake here? Because this looks wrong here. What's going on here? .stagger from looks like it should be. Is that right? I've made a mistake somewhere, haven't I? What have I done? Oh, I've not put ease in here. Right. Okay. And so now you can see that there's a little sort of. Can you see that there's actually a little bit of a bounce on the face on that brown circle? Little bit of a one. Very, very subtle. And I want to do the same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of elastic to the petals as well, because that's going to look cool. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add that in there for the petals, both sets of petals. Now, I think these petals are coming in way too late. So I'm going to... And you remember we can move things back, even though they're a stagger. We can still move them back. So I'm going to move this first lot of petals. I'm going to move these back by about 3 seconds and see how that looks. Oh, that's too quick. I've moved it back. So the petals are actually happening before the face now. So maybe we change that to maybe just 2 seconds back. I want them to sort of rear up behind the face. So I want them to go back a bit further than that, minus 2.4 seconds. I want them to, something like that. And you're going to get that lovely sort of transition. And that's how useful this tool is that I've made. I've used it in every single animation, this scrub GSAP timeline thing, because it just makes making these timings just so easy. So let's see how that looks. I mean, it's all a bit slow, really, isn't it? But it's certainly getting there anyway. I think we can bring. Where are we now? So I think what's causing a slight problem is this left leaf here is coming in too late. So I think this is leaf group 2, left leaf. So let's have a look at that. Leaf group 2, left leaf, and I think this needs to come back to maybe 0.4 of a second earlier. There you go. So now it's sort of coming after the other one. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. I'm also going to change how quickly this petal backs, these petals come in. I'm not going to change the speed, but I'm going to change the offset. So if I go to petal group back, can you see the offset is 0.07? I'm going to make that quicker. So I'm going to make it 0.03 or something like that, just so that they come in a bit faster. There you go. That's a bit better, isn't it? I think that's going to look in much nicer now. Now, there was a reason. Remember, I said at the beginning, I like to group everything. And one of the reasons is so that I can animate the entire thing if I want to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this entire flower to be slightly rotated one way or the other, and give it a little bit of an elastic. I'll show you. So we've got our animation. At the end of the animation, I'm going to do .from, and I can say the whole flower, and I'll give it an arbitrary, I don't know, I'll just give it like a 3-second animation for now, just to see how it looks. And I'm going to say its rotation is ever so slightly rotated one way or the other, and you'll see why in a minute, maybe like 10 degrees. Now this is going to look, and also I'm going to set it to start right at the beginning. So if I put 0, this is a hard-coded time for it to start. I'm saying you start right at the beginning, and so you can see this is our whole flower sort of rotating. But as is the default, its rotation, its transform origin is top left. And what I want to do is I want to rotate it around this bottom point so that it looks like it's kind of swaying. So I'm just going to quickly go over and copy a transform origin bit of code. Copy that. And its transform origin is, so if we go back to here, it's 50% along and 100% down. So it's 50% along. It's in the middle of the X of the flower, and it's right down on the Y. So that's 50% on the X and 100% on the Y. So now, and we're gonna give it a nice elastic ease as well. Now .config, and we're going to give it quite a big overshoot, like it's going to overshoot by 1 second, and we're going to give it a little bit of a. Oh, that's actually not. We'll make it quite dramatic. So this is going to be overshooting by 1 second. So you can kind of see it wobbling a little bit. I actually want to do it a bit more than that. So maybe 20, a rotation of 20, so that as it comes in. Let's just have a look at this. How am I doing for time?
Only a couple minutes.
Only a couple of minutes. Okay. So I think it kind of looks all right as it is. I want to basically speed the entire thing up. So what I can do is when I make the new timeline max, I can add .time scale. Now, if I add 1, that's its natural time scale. That means it'll be exactly the same time as all. It'll be the same time. That's basically a time scale of 1. That's how much. That's the time that we've set it to. If I set it to 2, it will be twice the time. And I think that kind of looks a little bit better. Maybe it's a bit fast. And I think all those seeds are a bit slow as well, aren't they? So we'll just sort of tidy that up. But essentially, that's pretty much. Let's just speed that up a little bit, so that they come in a bit quicker. And there you have it. Ukraine's national emblem animated in 40 minutes.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was really amazing. It's cool.
Thank you very much for that. So, I'm sorry. Once again, I'm sorry I couldn't be there. But as I said, life conspired against me. So how can I just come out of this? I can't really. Oh, stop sharing. There we go. And I'll just come back to my. There I am. Can you see me?
Yeah, everyone.
Hooray! That was a live sunflower code. Did anybody find that useful?
Hey guys.
Hooray! As long as one person found it useful, then I'm happy.
So
excellent.
Thank you so much, Chris. And
thank you very much.
See you next time. Bye.
Cheers then. Bye-bye.